Well, hello, my name is Christopher Scott and I'm the small groups pastor of a local church. And in this video, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to the very short letter of 3rd John, right? So in this video, I'm going to cover 6 things. I'm going to talk about the author of the book. I'm going to talk about the audience, which John was writing to. I'm going to talk about the date of the letter. I'm going to give you an outline of the book, a key verse, and then a key theme of the book together. So let's look at those first, starting with the author. The author is John, who was a disciple of Jesus, described in the Gospels, as well as an apostle of the early church. Apostle meaning he was one of the men that helped establish and lead the early church. And John's ministry, most of John's ministry took place in Asia Minor, right? So if you read the book of Revelation, chapters 2 and 3, you read about these 7 churches in Asia Minor that John writes his book to. Book of Revelation 2, and that's likely where he ministered and where he pastored and helped oversee some of those churches, right? So the author is the man John. We know that because the letter mentions this elder. He was an elder or leader of the church, as well as some of the early church fathers and people that maybe knew John or people that knew someone that knew John say that this letter was written by John, right? So there's debates out there, but it's just easiest to say John wrote it. If people want to debate that, let them debate it and worry about it. But that's my personal belief, is that the disciple and apostle John wrote this. The same guy that wrote the Gospel of John, 1 John, 2 John, wrote 3 John, as well as the same John that wrote the book of Revelation, okay? Next, let's talk about the audience, right? So John writes this to a man named Gaius. He names right there at the very beginning of the letter and calls him a loyal follower of Jesus Christ. So someone that he knew, that maybe he trained and mentored, and who is actively leading and pastoring in the area there. The book of 3rd John was written in about 85 to 90 AD, right? So most of the New Testament at this time had already been written, and it's probably one of the last letters to be written and compiled. A lot of people believe that the book of Revelation is the last book of the Bible to be written in 95 AD, and the book of 3rd John is written between 85 and 90 AD, around the same time as 1 John, 2 John, and the Gospel of John. It's really difficult to date books, but that's what most scholars would say, between 85 and 90 AD, so kind of towards the end of the New Testament era. An outline of the book, Warren Wiersbe, who I really like his commentaries, outlines the book in 4 ways, and he uses it primarily using the guys that are mentioned in the book, right? So the first 8 verses are about Gaius. He is a beloved believer. Gaius is a beloved believer, talked about in the first 8 verses. Then John talks about Diotrephes, who is a proud believer, in verses 9 and 10. And he kind of comes down hard on Diotrephes, saying he always wants to be a leader, things like that. Then after that, starting in verse 11, John talks about this man named Demetrius, right? And Demetrius was an exemplary believer. So you kind of have Gaius as a good believer, Demetrius is an exemplary believer. You kind of bookend it with 2 good guys and then a bad guy in the middle, if that helps you remember it, right? And then there's a conclusion in verses 13 and 14 that kind of wraps it all up. So that's an outline of the book. The key verse of the book, according to Warren Wiersbe, and I agree, is in 3 John, verse 3, is kind of a key verse that wraps up and summarizes what the whole book is about. Verse 3 of 3 John says, "Some of the traveling teachers recently returned and made me very happy by telling me about your faithfulness and that you are living according to the truth." And that ties in with the theme of 3 John, is that we are supposed to be having a good witness in the church. We're supposed to be living out our faith and being good witnesses in the church, okay? And that's the letter of 3 John here that we've looked at. So 3 John, you hear people talk about being a postage stamp book, right? It's just one short little book, 14 verses, pretty easy to read, but there's a lot of good, rich stuff in there, both theologically as well as practically for how we live as Christians, right? So if you wanted to study this book of 3 John in a small group, I recommend the Warren Wiersbe Bible Study Series. It's called Beware of Religious Imposters, and it covers the books of 2 Peter, 2 John, 3 John, and then Jude. So there's some other books mixed in there with that. And I like the Warren Wiersbe series because they're pretty good, solid, in-depth Bible studies. And they also come with a really good commentary that helps someone to facilitate the group, or helps people in the group that have a little extra time and really want to study and come prepared. So I'll put links to these 2 books down below in the notes, and they are affiliate links on Amazon. So if you buy anything from Amazon with those links, I get a commission for the purchase. So my name's Christopher Scott. Hope you found this video to be really helpful for you on this short but rich book of 3rd John. If you liked what you saw and you want to subscribe and get updates on future videos, you can subscribe up there. If you want to find other 5-minute introductions to books of the Bible, you can find those up here. If you want to find out how to use the Warren Wiersbe Bible Study series in your small group, you can find a bunch of those videos down here. And if you want some other tips for how you lead and facilitate a small group, I got some of those videos down there. Thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you again in another video.